Machu Picchu is the most impressive living testimony of Inca civilization.
What we don't see is that
High in the Andes, Machu Picchu rises like a crown of stone and jungle. For over a century, explorers believed its greatest mysteries had already been uncovered. But the truth is far more astonishing, because nearly 60% of this Inca masterpiece still lies hidden beneath the surface. Recently, researchers stumbled upon something extraordinary. Using cutting-edge technology, they uncovered chambers sealed for centuries, spaces that held carved stone basins, ritual niches, and intricate water channels flowing with sacred purpose. There were no piles of gold or glittering treasures, but what they found was even more valuable. Proof of how the Inca blended engineering, spirituality, and nature into one seamless vision. What we know as Machu Picchu, the iconic terraces and stone walls perched on a mountain ridge, is only the beginning. The sanctuary actually spreads across more than 125 square miles, much of it still swallowed by jungle. LiDAR scans revealed hidden structures, ceremonial platforms, and forgotten pathways, painting a picture of a site far larger and more complex than anyone imagined. Even its timeline has been rewritten. For decades, history books told us Machu Picchu was built in the mid-1400s as a royal estate, but radiocarbon dating shocked archaeologists, showing that the site was active decades earlier. This wasn't just a king's retreat. It may have begun as a sacred landscape, a place of pilgrimage and ritual long before power shaped its purpose. Legends of secret doors and sealed tombs still echo through the citadel, sparking rumors of hidden chambers beneath the Temple of the Three Windows. But authorities, cautious of damaging the fragile stonework, have chosen preservation over excavation. Instead, real clues lie in places like the Temple of the Moon, a sacred cave carved into Huayna Picchu, where niches, altars, and even acoustics reveal how the Inca merged natural formations with spiritual design. These discoveries remind us that Machu Picchu is not just ruins. It is a living testimony to a civilization that saw no separation between the earth and the divine. Every stone, every channel of water, every hidden chamber carried meaning. And even now, half buried beneath jungle and time, its greatest secrets are only beginning to surface. High in the Peruvian Andes, where clouds drift like curtains across jagged peaks, lies one of the most extraordinary places on Earth, Machu Picchu. For more than a century, it has been a symbol of wonder, mystery, and ancient brilliance. Tourists come from every corner of the globe to see its terraces, temples, and breathtaking views. But what most visitors don't realize is this: what they see is only the surface. Nearly 60% of Machu Picchu still remains underground, untouched, waiting. Recently, researchers uncovered something that changes everything. Beneath layers of stone and jungle, sealed chambers were revealed, spaces that hadn't been seen by human eyes in hundreds of years. Inside were ritual basins carved from solid rock, hidden water channels, and niches that once held sacred objects. There was no glittering gold or buried treasure, but what they discovered was far more important: evidence that Machu Picchu was not simply a royal retreat. It was a sacred machine, designed to merge nature, water, and the heavens into one living system. Most people think of Machu Picchu as the famous postcard view: stone terraces perched on a ridge, the sun rising over Huayna Picchu. But that's only the beginning. The sanctuary actually stretches across more than 125 square miles. Entire sections are still cloaked in jungle. Many of these areas remain unstudied, their temples, terraces, and pathways hidden beneath centuries of roots and stone. For generations, archaeologists believed they had a timeline. Spanish chronicles claimed Machu Picchu was built in the mid-1400s under the rule of the great emperor Pachacuti. But when researchers turned to science instead of stories, they were stunned. Radiocarbon dating revealed that some structures were already in use decades earlier, as far back as the 1420s. This discovery shattered the old narrative. Machu Picchu wasn't just a late project of royal luxury. It was active long before Pachacuti's reign reached its height. It may have begun as a sacred landscape, a place of pilgrimage, where ritual and power intertwined from the very start. What truly opened the hidden world, however, was technology. LiDAR scanning, Laser pulses fired from drones cut through the dense jungle canopy and exposed what the human eye could not see. Suddenly, lines and shapes began to emerge. Terraces, ceremonial platforms, and entire complexes invisible for centuries. One of the most surprising discoveries was at Cochabamba, once thought to be nothing more than an overgrown clearing. The scans revealed a sophisticated ceremonial site with stone channels, baths, and hidden chambers, proving the Inca had woven a vast spiritual landscape across the mountains. And yet mysteries remain. In the mid-2010s, a rumor spread like wildfire. A sealed doorway inside the Temple of the Three Windows. Radar scans seemed to show cavities, possible hidden chambers behind its walls. Could it be the tomb of Pachacuti himself? Could treasures or mummies lie hidden inside? The world waited for answers, but authorities made a decisive choice. The wall would not be opened. The risk of damaging Inca stonework, stone so precisely cut they've survived earthquakes for centuries, was simply too high. Whatever lies behind that wall remains a secret. But not all sacred spaces are legend. A grueling climb up Huayna Picchu reveals the Temple of the Moon, a cave sanctuary shaped by the Inca into a place of ritual. Here, niches, altars, and carved benches remain, alongside evidence of fire and offerings. Even the acoustics of the cave suggest that chants and prayers once echoed through the stone. It is a real glimpse into the spiritual architecture of the Inca, and perhaps a clue to what hidden chambers at Machu Picchu might contain. Together, these discoveries are rewriting everything we thought we knew. Machu Picchu is not simply a ruin frozen in time. It is a living puzzle. Part royal estate, part spiritual sanctuary, part engineering marvel. Its terraces fed the people. Its temples connected them to the gods. Its hidden chambers remind us that the story is far from complete. And maybe that's the true magic of Machu Picchu. The Inca built more than stone walls. They built mysteries that still defy the modern world. Even today, with satellites, drones, and advanced science, the mountains keep their secrets. Somewhere beneath the jungle, behind sealed doors and buried beneath centuries of silence, the Inca still wait for us to understand their greatest masterpiece. For generations, explorers thought they had uncovered its secrets. The temples, the terraces, the royal estate, all neatly explained in history books. But recently, something happened that shook the archaeological world. Researchers stumbled upon sealed chambers, untouched for centuries. What they found wasn't piles of gold or lost mummies, but something even more powerful. Evidence that Machu Picchu was more than a royal hideaway. It was a sacred machine, blending spirituality, engineering, and nature into one seamless system. To understand why this is so extraordinary, we need to step back. When most people think of Machu Picchu, they imagine the famous ridge, stone walls stacked with impossible precision, green terraces climbing down the slopes, and Huayna Picchu towering in the background. But in truth, that citadel is just one small part of a much larger sanctuary. The full site stretches across more than 125 square miles, most of it swallowed by thick jungle. Beyond the tourist trails lies a hidden world, forgotten terraces, ceremonial baths, sacred caves, and pathways once used by priests and nobles, now overgrown and invisible to the naked eye. The Inca who built this world were master builders and visionaries. At their height, their empire stretched across Peru, Bolivia, Ecuador, Chile, and Argentina. Without wheels, without iron tools, and without written language, they engineered stone cities so strong they still stand after centuries of earthquakes. Their masonry, called ashlar, was cut so precisely that not even a blade of grass could slip between the stones. This wasn't just architecture. It was philosophy carved into stone. But for centuries, history told us a simple story, that Machu Picchu was built in the mid-1400s as a royal estate under Emperor Pachacuti, the empire's most powerful ruler. Spanish chroniclers, writing decades after the conquest, painted this picture. Their words became fact, repeated in books, museums, and classrooms around the world. But there was a problem. These chroniclers had never seen Machu Picchu. Their accounts were hearsay, shaped by politics and memory. Modern science changed everything. Archaeologists began testing physical samples, charcoal from ancient fires, plant fibers sealed beneath floors, organic remains trapped in stone foundations. Using radiocarbon dating, they discovered something shocking. Parts of Machu Picchu were already active decades before Pachacuti's supposed construction. This meant the citadel wasn't just a late project. It was alive earlier than anyone believed. Perhaps built not as a royal retreat, but as a sacred landscape woven into the spiritual heart of the Inca world. And then came the breakthrough that rewrote the map. LIDAR scanning, light detection, and ranging. From drones and aircraft, millions of laser pulses shot through the jungle canopy, bouncing back to create a 3D image of the ground below. What appeared on researchers' screens stunned them. Straight lines where nature should have been random. Rectangles where the forest floor had seemed untouched. Entire terraces and platforms invisible to the human eye, now revealed in perfect detail. Machu Picchu is the most impressive living testimony of Inca civilization. What we don't see is that 60% is underground. It's absolutely breathtaking. Deep in the mountains of Peru, Machu Picchu has always been a place of wonder and mystery. For over a century, explorers and tourists believed its greatest secrets had already been uncovered. Look at that. There we go. Who's that? That could be one of them. Yeah, it looks like it's on a bit of a terrace. Recently, researchers stumbled upon something completely unexpected. Hidden beneath layers of stone and jungle was a chamber that had remained unseen for hundreds of years. There was metals inside this hidden chamber, gold, silver, and other types of metallic objects. Silent and untouched, it waited, concealed from the world. What was found inside is now challenging everything historians thought they knew about this ancient site. In the most simple terms, what are we looking for feature-wise that might be from before the revealing a new chapter in Machu Picchu's story that no one ever imagined? What counts as Machu Picchu? High in the Peruvian Andes, the jungle hides more than just trees. For centuries, it has covered the remains of a lost world. This world is made up of stone temples, sacred water channels, and hidden pathways that stretch through the mountains. When most people think of Machu Picchu, they picture the famous view seen in travel brochures, a cluster of ancient stone terraces sitting high on a mountain ridge. However, that well-known citadel is only a small part of the site. Beyond it lies a much larger area, covering more than 125 square miles. This wider sanctuary is full of places that have not yet been explored and still hold many mysteries. The people who built this incredible site were the Inca, one of the most advanced civilizations in pre-Columbian South America. At their peak, the Inca Empire stretched across modern-day Peru, Bolivia, Ecuador, and parts of Chile and Argentina. They were expert builders and engineers who constructed vast road systems, agricultural terraces, and stone cities, all without modern machinery. The Inca are really well known for their incredible stonework, which is called ashlar masonry, and the stones fit together perfectly without any mortar. The stones at Machu Picchu were carefully shaped and fitted together so precisely that they have survived centuries of earthquakes and harsh weather. This mastery allowed the Inca to control a vast territory and link communities spread across rugged terrain. Machu Picchu was one of their crown achievements, serving both practical and spiritual roles. Physically, it functioned as a royal estate and a strategic site for agriculture and governance with terraces, storage areas, and housing for nobles. Spiritually, it was believed to be a sacred center where the Inca performed religious ceremonies to honor their gods and connect with the heavens, mountains, and natural forces they deeply respected. Beyond the famous citadel lies a network of temples, terraces, and ancient trails that once connected different parts of the sanctuary. Many of these areas are still swallowed by thick jungle. Over the centuries, vegetation grew over buildings and roads, hiding them completely from view. Archaeologists believe that even today, large portions of this landscape have yet to be explored or even identified. Why so much remains hidden comes down to location and preservation rules. The sanctuary sits in a remote region surrounded by dangerous cliffs, fast-moving rivers, and dense forests. These natural barriers make exploration extremely difficult. For much of modern history, researchers focused almost entirely on the citadel, which was accessible and already famous. Strict conservation laws added another layer of challenge, limiting excavation to protect the fragile ruins from damage. This left huge areas virtually untouched and fueled centuries of mystery. Myths and stories began to spread about secret temples, sealed tombs, and chambers hidden deep in the mountains waiting to be discovered. Some areas out or outside the citadel have gained attention in recent years. Cochabamba, for example, lies several miles away and contains intricate stone channels and ceremonial baths. Machu Picchu, the towering peak behind the main citadel, holds mysterious caves and temples like the Temple of the Moon. These locations remained overlooked for generations because reaching them meant dangerous climbs or risky river crossings. Explorers knew they existed, but lacked the tools to study them properly. That began to change when researchers introduced modern mapping technology. For the first time, they could begin to see through the dense jungle and uncover structures that had been invisible for centuries, revealing a much larger, more complex Machu Picchu than anyone had imagined. The scans that pierced the jungle. When researchers recently began using LIA technology to study Machu Picchu from above, LiDAR is a mapping tool that sends out laser pulses from drones or small aircraft. These lasers penetrate the dense jungle canopy and create a three-dimensional image of the ground below. This was not a simple tool or a routine upgrade. It was a game-changer. The team launched drones and small aircraft over the thick jungle canopy, flying low and steady over terrain that no one could safely navigate on foot. From the ground, the forest appeared impenetrable, but from the air, the drones fired thousands of tiny laser pulses every second. These pulses cut through the gaps in the leaves and branches, bouncing off the ground below before returning to the sensors. Each return signal was carefully recorded, allowing researchers to build an incredibly precise three-dimensional map of the entire area. When the first scans appeared on their screens, the reaction was immediate. At first, it looked like just another topographic image, but then unmistakable patterns began to emerge. Straight lines appeared where nature would never have placed them. Flat rectangular shapes suggested foundations buried beneath the earth. Entire terraces invisible to anyone standing on the surface were suddenly visible in perfect detail. Some of the most shocking discoveries came at Cochabamba. Before LiDAR, it had seemed like little more than an overgrown clearing. The scans revealed that it was actually a complex ceremonial center. Hidden chambers, carved stone channels, and carefully engineered terraces were all laid out with a precision that spoke of advanced planning. Researchers were stunned. The discoveries did not stop there. As more scans were processed, other hidden structures began to appear in areas that had never been studied. Some looked like platforms for ceremonies. Others contained clusters of niches, possibly for sacred objects or symbols. The scans raised another, even deeper question. When exactly had all of this been built? Now, with new technology reshaping our view of the landscape, researchers turned to cutting-edge science to test that timeline. And what they found would rewrite history. The date shock that changes everything. For many years, historians believed they had a clear timeline for Machu Picchu. Almost everything we thought we knew about when it was built came from Spanish colonial chronicles, written after the Spanish conquest. These documents place the site's construction in the mid-400s during the rule of Pacuti Inca Yupanqui, one of the most powerful leaders in the Inca Empire. Over time, this date became widely accepted. It was repeated in museums, books, and classrooms, shaping the narrative that Machu Picchu was a late project, built as Pacuti's royal estate and ceremonial retreat. However, there was a problem with this approach. The Spanish chronicles were written decades after the events they described. They were based on memory, hearsay, and sometimes political motives. The writers had never seen Machu Picchu themselves and relied on second-hand information. This left historians with a timeline that was widely accepted, but never scientifically proven. Archaeologists decided to put this traditional timeline to the test. Instead of relying on old texts, they turned to physical evidence buried at the site. Teams collected tiny organic samples from carefully sealed layers around walls, floors, and construction areas. These included bits of charcoal from ancient fires, plant fibers, and other material left behind during the original building and use of the site. The goal was to determine the actual age of these layers using radiocarbon dating, a method that measures the remaining traces of carbon in once living material. The samples were analyzed using accelerator mass spectrometry, or AMS, a highly advanced form of radiocarbon dating. This method can detect incredibly small amounts of carbon with great accuracy. The labs also checked each sample for contamination, and then calibrated the results using tree ring data to make sure the dates matched real calendar years. When the results came back, they were nothing short of shocking. Instead of confirming the mid-1400s timeline, the data showed that some of the structures at Machu Picchu were already in use as early as the 1420s and 1430s. This meant that activity at the site began decades earlier than anyone had believed. In other words, Machu Picchu was not a quick project built late in the empire's history. It was already an active, important site before Pacuti reached the peak of his power. These results were peer-reviewed and published, giving them strong credibility within the scientific community. This discovery changed everything. If the site's origins go back earlier than expected, then the purpose of Machu Picchu must also be reconsidered. It may not have begun as a private royal retreat at all. Instead, it could have been part of a larger religious landscape. The new timeline also highlights the limits of relying solely on historical writings.